So let's get started by telling you about us, telling you about who we are. Many of you know who we are. We took a look at some of the folks that were signing up for our session today, and of course, we saw a lot of our friends. A lot of our friends have joined us on the call, and so you're always welcome, and we're glad you're here. You know, so there we are on the slide. There's me and Courtney's here on the call too, and we'll be turning it over to her in just a few minutes. But I think it's important to just pause right here as we're thinking about the journey that Courtney and I have taken to get here today. You can see that I'm the leadership expert, which means I'm going to do the opening address, and then I'm going to turn it over to the master of change, Courtney Smock, who she has spent certainly more hours writing and talking and reading all about change. So we're going to turn the bulk of this session over to Courtney today. But I think it's worth noting, and as you can see, some of the facts that we share about ourselves there on the slide, is that we've really been in this for decades. We chose the word decades because I think it's a more descriptive term of what's actually true. And we have, looking at who our guests are in this meeting, we have a lot of people who can vouch for that. Some of you who are out there and listening have walked those decades with us. So you could call us on it if we were not being completely honest about that. But it's really been decades. And in those decades, I think it's been 3. It's certainly been 2 that we've been really thinking about all of this that we'll be sharing with you today. In that time, we've done a lot of training. Courtney and I have both done, we've been through all of the leadership programs and methods. We've learned a lot about them. And we've done a lot of trial and error, perhaps. I don't know, Courtney, if there's more error than trial sometimes in that. We've done a lot of trial and error in this place. But the good news is we've learned from our errors. We've learned from our mistakes. We've learned from what has worked and what hasn't. We've done a lot of writing, teaching, talking, studying about change and leadership. And our goal is always then to bring what we learn to you. And so about 4 years ago, we started Slingshot 25. We left the company that we had been working at for years, where you were victims. I mean, you were our customers of all of that trial and error that we were doing. So we left that company and we started Slingshot 25, which really opened the doors to allow us to go and take a peek into other companies as well and work with other companies beyond the company that Courtney and I had been working at for so many years. And one of the things that we found, and I know Courtney will tell you the same, is we found that they're all experiencing the same kind of struggles with change. And now maybe more or less, they manifest in different ways, but they're essentially experiencing the same kind of challenges as we've been bumping into for a couple of decades doing this work. And if that should be bringing to mind, it brings to mind for me, and it's probably bringing to mind for you, it kind of gives rise to the term systemic. Some of the challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to change, they're systemic, meaning they're in the environment. They're in the walls, if you will, they're in the wiring. But the good news is that I think, as someone who studies human behavior, is we built that environment and we can change that environment. And that is essentially what brings us to these kinds of conversations with people like you, is we can change that environment. We can make changes to how we do change. We can make changes to the environment so that these changes aren't so challenging, that we can actually make it stick. And of course, that's the science that Courtney is going to get into with you today. But before we get there, I want to invite you to look at, to notice, I'll say, I love to use the word notice, to self-reflect, to notice what mental model you hold about change management. You all do. No one comes to these kinds of calls if you don't already hold some sort of mental model about change management. So this is a bit of an advanced organizer, if you will, someone like me who thinks about learning and human behavior. Is I like to give advanced organizers, make you start thinking in advance. I want you to think about your learning today. In other words, Courtney's going to teach you some things. And one of the things that came up for me is literally as I was driving into work today, I started thinking about this idea about change management, and it's not always what we think it is. And one of the more prevailing, I think, troublesome things that gets mixed up in our mental models about managing change in an organization is that it can sort of be done by what I'm terming remote control. That we can, that just, if we just have enough spreadsheets and enough plans and put enough things down on paper and say we're going to do steps 1, 2, and 3, and that somehow that this will, manifest into making the change work and make it stick. And now, editorializing here, I'm a fan of, the work that Courtney and I put together over the course of those decades of working on this, that there are a lot of popular change management programming out there that help to give rise to that belief that just enough plans and enough spreadsheets and enough data will get you there. And Courtney is going to reveal to you today, many of you, I can tell by your notes in the Q&A, are already on to us. But that is sometimes getting in our way. So with that in mind, let me also remind you of what else we do here at Slingshot 25, because it makes me think about, and some of you may have heard us mention this before, is we don't teach a lot of tactics and techniques and, all the plans and the spreadsheets. Those certainly are a part of the work that we do. But we are constantly trying to take our learners, our followers, the people, when we put our work into the world, the people that consume our work, we're trying to invite you to think differently. And we do it in all of these areas. Today, we're going to focus much more on change management, but we do it around team performance. We do it around leadership. So we invite you to think differently, because in our opinion, it's just stringing together a bunch of tactics and techniques is not enough. We need people who can think differently. And so before I turn it over to Courtney today, I know after today, you're going to be wanting more from us. So there's lots of ways that you can get in contact with us. And so on the next slide, we'll just give you a little sneak preview and remind you, if you have to drop off early today, I know you're squeezing us in probably between bookending a very busy day. You can always find more on slingshot25.com. So with that, I am going to kick it over to Courtney Smock, who is going to tell us all about what we can do to make change stick. Courtney.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, making change stick. I'm going to dive straight in because I always liked diving. Let's just go straight into it and talk about why change doesn't stick. In order to think about what making change, how do we make it stick? It's important to understand as human beings why it's hard for that. And as I was preparing for this talk, I kind of got excited because Jackie kept saying we're decades. Like, let's just say it straight. We're old and we've done a lot of things. And the two things I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to share more than two, but the anchors behind the two things are both ideas that I haven't talked about in a while. And so it's really fun. I think it's one of the bonuses of getting older, of like, I'm starting to forget some really good stuff. And one of them is probably the biggest thing that I invite you to understand about how your brain works around why it's so hard to make change to begin with. And it's fundamentally because as human beings, our brains are built with neural pathways, little lanes in our brain that say, here's how things are, and here's how things should be, and here's where things are, and here's how we respond to certain situations. And those neural pathways, if you think about, I always think about my college campus. I went to the University of Wisconsin at Platteville, if anyone's ever heard of it. There was always sidewalks, and then there were paths in the grass where people had walked that weren't sidewalks, but eventually someone should put one there. And our brains work the same way. There are thoughts that we've had, behaviors we've had, actions we've had that are sidewalks. We do it every single day. We don't even think about it. And when we want to change, what we actually have to do is build a new pathway, a new behavior, a new path. And sometimes we get in the habit and it actually turns into a dirt path. Sometimes we go back to the old one. Like, oh, I want to adopt a healthy habit. I want to drink my water. Look at, if I buy myself a Stanley cup, I'll drink my water every day. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I would say that pathway is kind of, the grass grows back. And the thing about human beings is we like things the way they are. We are comfortable with those neural pathways of the known. We like the cement and consistent ones more than forging a new one. It's where we're comfortable. Ask you go to the next slide here. Here's a place where we're not comfortable. The TSA is a 4-letter word. I want you guys to think about, for those of you that have traveled, flown, what is your emotion, your reaction, your thought, what's going on in your chest, your heart, your mind when it's time to go through airport security? And I love this feeling and connecting you to that to explain, like, in real time, what goes on in our body, our minds, and our hearts when we're asked to change something. We're asked to move objects, like in the TSA example, actual objects that are important to us. What happens when we go through TSA? We are asked to take the things that are most valuable to us: our ID, our money, our wallet, right? Our little bag of toiletry, whatever, right? And we're asked to take it off, remove our shoes, right? Who likes to do that? Oh my God, I gotta take my shoes off. I gotta put myself in a bucket. And those pathways in our brain that say you are safe when you have all these things on your person, your cell phone, they start going off like alarm bells. Like, so uncomfortable to take my things that are important to me and put them in this basket, shove them down the lane, put them in the box of God knows what. And the whole time our brain is saying, I want my stuff back. Put it back, put it back, put it back. Where are my things, right? We check and check. The most anxious place probably in the world, I think, is TSA. Because our bodies, our hearts, and our minds know that things that are important to us are going to get moved. And if they're moved, they're not safe. And if they're not safe, I'm not safe. And then we go through this verb that I've heard somewhere, and I think it's made up, of recombobulation. Like, we get discombobulated through that process, and all we want to do is recombobulate. We want to put our stuff back. Happiest place on earth, the little seat that's right outside of TSA where I get to put my shoes back on. And I get to put my ID back in my wallet. And I get to check for my phone. And I pat, my daughter says, phone, wallet, keys, phone, wallet, like, check, 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 check. Is everything back where it's supposed to be? And this exercise, this example, is just a beautiful way to show you in a very short, time-bound way what our brains do every single time we ask people to change. When we ask them to get a new boss, when we ask them to use a new process, when we ask them to move locations, we ask them to follow a new process, whatever it is. The same panic, the same anxiety, the same bells go off that say, could you just put it back? Put it back, put it back, put it back. I'm going to invite you guys, just for fun. If you're a ring wearer, if you're a watch wearer, if you have a cell phone in your pocket, I want you to take it right now and switch it to the other hand, or switch it, take it off, just for this call, for the rest of the, whatever, 45 minutes that we have left together. Just change something in your physiology, whether it's your ring, your watch, your phone, and just notice how much energy that takes throughout the next 45 minutes. Those neural pathways are saying your ring that you've worn every day, Courtney, for I don't know how long, years and years and years, belongs on your right hand. And I'm going to put it on my left, and there's going to be some amount of my energy that's saying, put it back, put it back, put it back, put it back.
Hey, Courtney, I just got a comment in the Q&A that gives us, I think, an even better title for this slide.
Yeah.
I don't know who sent this. They're an anonymous attendee, but order, disorder, reorder, repeat.
Yes. Recombobulation. I have no idea how to spell recombobulation. I don't think it's a word, so it doesn't matter how I spell it. Yeah, order, reorder, disorder. No, order, disorder, reorder. Yes,
Repeat.
you got it. Repeat. So why is this so important to understand when we're talking about making change stick? If everything we're trying to do, every person we're talking to, their first reaction is going to be to put it back, what chance does our change have of sticking? We have to understand the human psychology. We have to understand the human psyche. We have to be super patient with people and give them a chance. I will tell you, if I change this ring and you changed your watch and you switched your ear, whatever you did, for the first hour, you're going to notice that you're going to feel like something's missing. For the first day, you might have this like something's not right. If you left it there for a week, you wouldn't even notice. Because eventually this would become your new normal. It would stick. What's so funny about human beings is if I asked you in 2 weeks or a month or 5 years to change it back to where it was, you would go through the same reaction. Your body would say, that's not right. I'm not comfortable. I'm not safe. Did I lose my ring? That reordering takes some time. That reordering takes some patience. That reordering takes some compassion as us as leaders, because we tend to tell ourselves a story and we ask people to change and they're not adopting the new behavior, the new process, the new expectation very quickly. We tell ourselves all sorts of stories about them. We tell ourselves they don't care enough. We tell ourselves they're resisting. We tell ourselves they just don't get it. That they're, maybe even if we're super whatever, like they're disrespecting the process. What if they're doing the best they can? What if we appreciated that they're hardwired to not want this? They're hardwired just like you want your wallet back when you travel, to put it back. One of the huge opportunities we have as leaders, if we want change to stick, is to be empathetic to what it feels like to be separated from what we know, and give them patience and time and room to practice and learn what it is we want them until it becomes their new normal. And when it doesn't happen right away, we're not critical, we're not defensive, we're not arrogant. We're saying, what can I do to help? How can we shift the environment? How can we create more time? How can we create more patience? How can we create more practice so that people have a chance to get it? And one other thing I want to add to this that is just so kind of counterintuitive, but it's you need to understand about the human psyche, is it does not matter if the person wanted the change, if the current state is miserable and bad, if it's better what you're getting. It's confusing for people when we have something that is broken, or people saying, I don't like this system, we need something better. Like they're unhappy with the current state. Somehow we have this expectation, and I think it's a fair one, that, oh, if we get rid of the bad current state and give them something better, we won't have this. People will be so excited about the new thing because they're in so much pain right now that we won't have any resistance. We won't have any complaining. We won't have any people trying to put it back because they're miserable or they're not happy or there's less than an optimal situation going on in their current state. And the thing you have to know is it doesn't matter, because the brain has a pathway that says this state that I'm complaining about, and I know could be better, is what I know. And so it is still going to resist and be uncomfortable and be anxious about the new thing, because even though the new pathway is better, even though it's good for me, even though I want it, it is not paved yet. It is not comfortable. It is not known. And so we can sit and judge the heck. I'm a professional judger, right? I can judge the heck out of people saying, wait a minute, you asked for this. Why are you complaining about it? Aren't you happy? Not yet. They're not. And it's not because they're bad people. And it's not because they don't care. And it's not because they can't get there. They will. But first, their emotions, I want you guys to think about TSA. Their emotions are fear, anxiety, and worry because this is unknown for a while until it's not. And that is what you're up against first and foremost when you're trying to make change stick. I'm going to pause and see if there's any comments or questions. Jack, Kim, anyone?
So I think I'm seeing a couple of comments in the Q&A that are getting at what you're talking about, Courtney. So Stephanie had made the comment that two things seem inherently real, that change is necessary for survival. It's built into humanity. That's how we got here, right? We had to evolve to get here. We're not living in caves anymore. So obviously a lot of changes have happened. But conversely, we're creatures of habit and find comfort in consistency. I think this is exactly what you're talking about.
100%.
So to added to that, so thank you, Steph, for that comment. Added to that is I've been reading a book, and I'll put a plug in here. We love plugging the kind of the things that we're reading. It's a book called The Friction Project by Bob Sutton. It's a fantastic book. It's not specifically about this topic, but it does cover change to a large degree. And the premise of this is to reduce friction in your organization. You make the right things easy and the wrong things harder. But of course, it's never that simple. And I think that's what you're getting at here too, Courtney, is that sometimes even when it's the right thing to do, it needs to be a little bit tricky because you don't want things to be able to change too rapidly either. And that's what your comment, Stephanie, brought this to mind for me. Even though we rely on changing for our survival, we don't want to change too easily either, if that makes any sense, right? Like some things need to be thoughtful. Some things need to, sometimes there's the work itself creates loyalty. Like you have to work hard at something. We think about this sometimes when we talk about highly privileged people, their lives were too easy, and so they don't appreciate it. So there's something about working for it that makes us appreciate things more. So that's almost like there's a right kind of friction that is sometimes needed. So maybe I'm bringing all of this up to I don't think that the end state that we're ever after is that change becomes really easy. I don't think that's, well, number one, I don't think we're going to get it anyway, but I don't think we should even be thinking about that. Like, remember, I'm asking you today, I asked you to think about how you think about change and to be constantly challenging yourself in that. So that was kind of a long-winded comment and not so much a question.
I love it.
But
No, I love
that's
it.
how smart our listeners are today. So.
Well, and it's the same, right? So if you want to extend the making change stick, another place where there's a ton of work is around the book Atomic Habits. And he gets at the same thing that says, if you really want to change a habit, he teaches in there, many of you have read it, it's a very popular book. How do you reduce friction? How do you make, if you want to walk in the morning, like I think he says something like put your shoes on and sleep in them so that when your feet hit the floor, you're ready to go. Like, how do you put yourself in a place where the thing that you want, that you say you want, comes super easy? And all of that reducing friction ties right back to this to say, how do you do things that when your brain is going to fire off anxiety, excuses, resistance, negotiation, how do you build things into your system that make that less? Because if you build it up too big, your ego is going to react really big. So how do you reduce the friction, as Jackie's talking about in that book, or how he talks about in Atomic Habits? It says, I don't even think about it. Therefore, I don't have to deal with my own, I build the pathway around before my old one can kick in. Right? Yeah, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Any other comments or questions about the first thing that we want to put things back? Did you guys know why Jackie was talking? You know what I did? I put my ring back on the finger it's supposed to go on. Okay, it's back on my left hand again. Didn't even know.
No other questions. Just a comment that no one likes TSA touching their stuff.
Yeah, Jackie and I were just in the airport yesterday. I thought you'd find it especially close topic.
This photo is making people uncomfortable. I think we need to go to the next slide.
Yes. Okay, let's go next slide. All right. So the second idea is around forgotten idea coming back is the marathon analogy. So I have used a marathon analogy to teach many lessons around change. And the two things that I want to bring out from this are, one, part of the reason that it's difficult for leaders to make change stick is the fact that people go through change at a different rate. People start at a different place, people experience different things. So the first idea, I don't know if there's marathon runners on this call. I am not one myself, so kudos to you if you are. But in the big marathons, like New York, Boston, right? Thousands of people are going to run this race. In those races, the fast runners I hear, I don't know how to, like, run a marathon in just over 2 hours. And one of the things that's interesting is when you have that many people waiting to run the race, there are actually people in line to run the marathon that haven't even started the race yet when the fast runners who got to go first have finished. And so one of the things that makes change, like making change stick hard, is the people, guess who in our business world are the fast runners? Who gets to go first and complete the race quickly? It's leadership, right? Or maybe a project team or some small group of people. And what we run into is the people who had the idea, the people that got to go first, they're at the ice bath massage tent while other people haven't even started this journey. They don't know what it means. They don't know where we're going. They don't know what it means to them. And there's a big disconnect in experience, because think about the emotions and the reactions and the feelings of someone who finished the race. Let's say the marathon, the first runner started at 8 a.m. and it's now 11 a.m. Right? The people who are done are like, whoa, that was great. Let's see the results. Let's go, do whatever we do after marathon. I assume you sleep for 3 days, but I don't know what happens after marathon. And the people that are just starting are anxious. They're worried. They have questions. They might be seeking information. They want clarity. And so we're in different places. And the people who need information, who are feeling anxious, who are feeling worried, the people who should be taking care of them and being the leaders they need right now, they're on the celebration tour or on the sigh of relief side of it. And maybe they aren't spending enough time understanding that people are in a different place than they are. Another pothole and like in a marathon is just the messy middle of it. You get running and you get tripped up, right? You get tripped up on things in the messy middle. And we've talked about this in these calls a lot. Like, we don't have clear expectations. Not everybody thinks we're going to the same place. These processes don't work. I'm in a learning curve because I don't understand this tool now. I haven't met my new teammates, right? There's a messiness in the middle that you actually, like in a marathon, the muscles get sore. Maybe people actually twist an ankle or they fall down and get a bruise. We have those emotional pothole things that happen to us in the change space. Not to push the analogy too hard, but like we actually get banged up and knocked off kilter a little bit in the messy middle. We don't feel as confident. We don't feel as strong. We certainly don't feel as smart if we have to learn new things and we're in a learning curve. We don't feel as productive. We don't feel as visible. And all of those things make the messy middle kind of painful. And if it's not easy, there's a lot of friction, this is hard, then maybe I want to go back to the old stuff. Maybe I don't want to try this after all. Maybe I was standing on the side waiting for it to get started anyway, and I'm not getting in there. That looks like it's going to hurt. And so the messiness and the messy middle is actually something else that makes it hard for change to stick. People are saying, I'm not about that. This is too hard. This doesn't feel good to be in here. Why are we doing this? And all of a sudden, rather than leaning in and climbing out of the change, people start to lean back and they try to figure out, can we get out of this? Can I avoid this? Can I, call the person I used to call? Can we use the old process? Can I work around this new expectation? And all of a sudden, we're not finishing, right? We're not all ending up in the current state or the future state we wanted, because either we just stopped right there and didn't engage, or we actually tried to go backwards because this is not working, right? What we want is a world where we introduced a change. We knew it was going to be bumpy and hard, and it was, we'd have some sore muscles and bruises, but we climbed out of it and we got to the new future state. But a lot of times it doesn't happen because the messy middle is so messy that people can't figure out how to get from here to there. Any questions, or Jack, anything you'd add to that?
No questions right now. Making sense.
So the recombobulation, the potholes, the messy middle, they lead us to emotions. I said it. People have feelings. And these are where change gets messy, where it gets hard, where we lose people. And in the discussion that Jackie led at the beginning of this, like, this is where it's not a spreadsheet that's going to save you. It is human beings. As leaders, we understand that we are leading human beings, and our best option to get people through change, to make it stick, is to see them and to care about them. And we can anticipate what they're feeling because we're smart and emotions are predictable. And Mark Brackett's done a ton of work. You can check out his books. There's something like 536 emotions. I always make that number up. Don't test me on it. But there's 3 that I think are really important, evident, and very, I was going to say profuse, but prolific in change. I'm sure there's others, and I'll be curious after I debrief these 3, what other ones you guys see a lot. But the first one that I want to talk about is anxiety. Anxiety is the emotion that is driven by uncertainty. Woo! How much anxiety is around your changes? I just talked about TSA. How much anxiety is in that line? Fear of the unknown. The only things that human beings can do with fear of the unknown is to turn on their anxiety motor. That's it. All of a sudden, if I don't know something, my brain starts saying, well, what if, what now, what next, when? And depending on your personality and your habits, like, if anxiety is your go-to emotion, you're real good at letting your energy spin on what if, what now, will I be safe? What does this all mean? We all have some level of anxiety. Some of us have more than others. But if there is unknown in yourself, in your team, in your organization, you also have anxiety in yourself, in your team, and in your organization. And anxiety, it's also a very contagious emotion. So maybe I'm fine and then someone else is worried. Well, now I'm worried because you just shared that with me. Thank you. There's a lot of uncertainty when things change. Most of the time we know what we're doing before we know what it all means, how it's going to work, and how it impacts me. There's no way that we cannot have anxiety, and you have it in spades across your teams. And people are anxious. They're spending energy you can't even see. It's in their head, their hearts. And that's energy that's making them feel less productive, making them feel less safe. It's kind of wearing them out, right? It runs like a little motor, trying to figure things out. Our opportunity as leaders is to get more clear, make decisions, figure stuff out, answer questions, acknowledge questions we don't have the answers to, so that people don't have to worry so much. And I think I'm a big, like, make decisions, communicate decisions, make decisions, communicate decisions. It's because I don't think it's fair to let people be worried about stuff that we know. I don't think it's fair to let people be anxious and spend their motors running about things that we just haven't, as leaders, taken the time to figure out. Or worse, we figured it out, we just haven't told them. Communicate your decisions to people. Drive that anxiety down. Take responsibility for lowering it. It'll never go to 0. But can it go lower? The second emotion that comes up a lot in change, the definition of it, of disappointment. Disappointment's the second emotion. The definition is it's driven by unmet expectations. It's driven by unmet expectations. So think about this from a change perspective, what we can do as leaders. When we communicate our business decisions, we want to do that with a set of expectations. Here's what we're doing and here's what it means. And we want to meet those expectations. expectations from timeline, expectations from roles and responsibilities, expectations for the future of the company, whatever it is, we got to be careful about what we set expectations around, because if we miss them, we're going to drive a lot of disappointment into our organizations. It's just it. And I want you guys to reflect on this. Like, sometimes we think we're, having a reaction. Back up. If you're feeling something that's not right, how often is it because you thought something was going to happen that didn't? And here's where I think it came up in one of the comments earlier of like, people have expectations. If we don't communicate what to expect, people are going to make it up and they're going to come up with one. And we got no chance of meeting that. We don't even know what they filled in the gap where we didn't talk about things with their own story. What chance do we have to hit it? So making decisions, communicating them, and communicating expectations is a big deal, because we want to set the bar on what people should expect so that we can hit it. And we want to be like, lower your expectations, people, like, be honest. And if you don't know, then say so. Don't promise people the world and miss it, or you're just going to drive a ton of disappointment into your organization. And disappointment doesn't kill us, but it does wear us out over time, right? We're human beings. We can handle being disappointed. It's part of life. But why would we set up a world where we're intentionally like over-promising, under-delivering, and not recognizing where we actually created that disappointment? Make decisions, think about what they mean, and tell people. And when you can't, tell them, we don't know yet, because that's honest. And the last one, I think it's my favorite, because, it's my go-to emotion, anger. Anger is the emotion that is driven by a need for justice. And the way anger comes out, just anytime that we're, as a human being, this is work-related, home-related, whatever, when we think things aren't right, aren't fair, are not just, our humanness creates anger. We're mad about that. So when a decision gets made and I thought I should have input on it, but no one asked me, you are going to see anger. You can anticipate. I don't know if you're going to see it because most people bury it, but it's perfectly reasonable as a leader to expect that people are going to be mad about that. We don't have a lot of space, especially in our corporations and our businesses. We don't have room for anger, but we do a lot of things that make people mad, or should, because they don't feel just, they don't feel fair. One of the things we do is sometimes we communicate business decisions and we don't bother to communicate any of the context. And when I say that, I mean, we don't communicate what we decided. We don't communicate why we would decide it. We don't communicate what other choices there were. And so people just know they have to do this thing. And it doesn't feel right. And it feels like a bad decision to them. And it doesn't feel fair. And who are they to decide? And there's all this anger. And at work, because we don't have a safe space to just come in and say, you know what, that made me mad. You pissed me off. It ends up turning into either resentment. So I bury that anger and I just bring it out later, or a lot of passive aggressive nonsense. Because I'm mad, but I don't have permission to be mad. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm being nice. And then I'm going to find some other way to, stab you in your sleep. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I said anger, my go-to emotion. So these, like, do you guys see from a change perspective, if we communicate decisions, if we're really mindful about the expectations we're setting, and when we communicate things, we try to provide context, we can reduce the amount of anxiety, disappointment, and anger that our organization, our teams are going to feel. What else do you notice? What is this? I'm curious if anything's resonating. Jackie, anything you'd add? What's coming up for you, Jack, as I talk about that? She's
Well,
like, oh yeah, your anger. I know about the anger.
I'm worried about getting stabbed in my sleep right now. But other than that,
I don't have sharp objects.
There's a great comment in the Q&A that I think would be important to address. And that is that some people experience change by getting excited and recharged. So, the slide is presenting the things that sort of get in the way and the things that we need to address. But Courtney, talk to us a little bit about the idea that sometimes change can bring, refreshment to people, recharged, excited.
Yeah, I love the comment. I never talk about it. So as a leader, the most important thing you can do is notice what reactions your people are having. And if you do have people that are energized by change, the studies say it's about 4% of your organization that's actually on that energized, come what may, I'll lead kind of energy. I think everyone actually goes through some sort of recalibration when things are changing, and some people move through that quicker than others. So just notice, right? If you have someone on your team that you know is quick to be energized by change, think about how you help them move the project forward. And you actually, this is going to sound completely counterintuitive, but you actually might have to talk to them about being sensitive to others who are feeling anger, disappointment, anxiety, because in the early part, that person may be annoying to the team who's kind of sitting in their own stench and stink and feeling bad about it. So just as a leader, notice, but then like tell them like, okay, here's how I'm going to use you because your energy is fantastic and it's going to be great. And we're going to give these folks a minute and then I'm going to give you this thing and I want you to go run with it. So it's noticing like, yes, absolutely. We want everyone to be excited. And those cheerleaders can be a huge role. I would put them on your change networks. I would put them in, give them assignments and responsibilities. Take that energy and go do something with it. It's great. Know where they are. And if they identify themselves to you and want to help, which I know they do, because that's how you know about them, fantastic. And then also balance that with the reality that not everyone's going to be where that person is. Some of these people will never get there. And that's okay. As long as they're participating, it doesn't matter. We don't need all cheerleaders. But knowing where they are is fantastic as a leader. You're like, okay, help me row, get in this boat. Let's move this thing.
Yeah, the other comment we had in the Q&A was just recognizing, I think it's sort of captured by a bit of the anxiety, disappointment, is insecurity is another emotion that we see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, there's something like over 500 emotions. There's a lot more.
Yeah, I keep a list of all of the emotions here at my desk. It's several pages long. In case you're looking for some, need to reference. I don't know how that related to anything, but there they are.
I love that. All right, so let's talk about, so we have a hard time talking about emotions and work. And corporations, teams, like we don't like to talk about the F words, the feelings, just keep it business, people. My belief is that this emotional discomfort during times of change, this is actually the real cost of change. If your people didn't have emotions, if they weren't uncomfortable, if things change and it didn't create a loss for them, we wouldn't even talk about change management. A leader's job and the opportunity you have is to recognize that this discomfort of this ring moving in his hand is real. Disappointment is real. And people who are angry are not as productive. They're not as helpful as people who aren't. And see that loss, be empathetic and do things that help, right? So go to the next slide for me. Let me show you how this translates. When people are reacting to their emotions, it has a real cost to your business. Those of you that are on this call that went through my change class, you just heard this, right? Attentional capacity. If I am anxious and worried and nervous and scared, guess what I'm not doing? Focusing on my work and my customers. How can I? My brain is saying, I don't know how this fits. I don't know how this is going to work. I wonder what it is. How can I focus on my work? My attentional capacity is shot if I am in the emotions of change. Over time, if my motor's been running, my decision-making is affected. Our business is only good as the decisions we make. If our energy is going into this other stuff, and when it comes time to make decisions, I'm not making great ones, it starts to have a real business impact. Why did we do that? I don't know. I was scared. Not a great decision. And somehow we think any decision anyone makes is a perfect decision. There's such thing as bad decisions. And if we are sucked into the emotion, we're attached, no one's acknowledging, validating, care about me when things change, the chances that I'm not making great decisions with the energy I've left is higher. How I'm feeling, how I show up with others, my relationships, how good or not good I am to work with, it affects my relationships. All of our work happens through our relationships. If I'm strung out, anxious, worried, scared, feeling insecure, I'm not as great to work with. I mean, I think I'm pretty fabulous to work with, but not so great. If I'm feeling threatened, if I don't know if I fit, if I don't know if I belong, to overcompensate, I start not being such a good teammate. Maybe I start taking credit for things because I'm worried I'm not, people don't think I'm smart enough. And all of a sudden, how I'm feeling about this change, the lack of safety and security is affecting how I show up with others. And I need those others to get my work done. So all of a sudden, less collaboration, less productivity, right? That's a real cost to your business. Not to mention physical and mental health. If this change and where I'm fitting and what I have, what I don't have is stressing me out, I'm going to take more sick days. I'm actually not feel well at work sometimes. Maybe I'm not sleeping very well. You guys have been part of projects. I've worked with some of you where the stress that you have on the project, you can't even sleep at night. You're having the dream. I've had it where your teeth are falling out. Right? And you just keep putting them in, they just keep falling out. That is a response to stress. And it's not uncommon that you're leading a big change. You've got a lot on your plate that is impacting how you sleep. And if you don't sleep good, you don't show up well, right? It's all compounding. And that starts to be a real cost. If we don't have teammates who are healthy, or we're not showing up healthy, we're not able to give our best to our projects and our work or our customers. And the last one, impossible to measure but big, is performance and creativity. We will never know what opportunities we missed when we were looking down at what am I losing? How is this going to work or not? What's going on? I'm so focused on what I'm losing, what I'm scared of, what I'm disappointed in, what I'm angry about, that I miss what was possible at this time of change when there was a blank slate, a new world could have been created, and I missed the opportunity to draw it because I was so consumed with what I was attached to in the past. There's a real, we can't measure it, right? We can't, but it's absolutely a cost because whatever that opportunity was is not available to us. That's kind of scary. All right, last slide here I want to talk about. So things you can think about. Sticky strategies. A big one is, as you're setting out to announce your change, having active and visible sponsors, having people who understand what's changing, that are communicating it, who are creating that clarity, who are mindfully setting expectations. There's not a single factor that's more important in making your strategy stick. People who have that voice that comes up that says, just put it back. They're looking up at their leader saying, do I get to put it back? Is this optional? Do we really mean this? So if you want it to stick, starting at the top and making sure you have people that are setting the expectation, communicating the decision, making sure that they give context when they communicate, super important. Secondly, prepare your leaders. You have people that are going to be anxious, disappointed, scared, angry, insecure. Change is going to get you into mess. These people aren't going to feel great all the time. And so when you have leaders who can see them, who are taught to notice how they're feeling, hey, notice where your cheerleaders are. Notice where your strugglers are. And really create a world where these leaders understand what it takes to be the leader that your teams need during times of change. You need every person to work for someone who sees them, who cares about them, who can appreciate what they're going through and not judge them and be like, oh, they're resisting change. No, they just want to put it back because they're scared. And prepare leaders to create an environment where people can make mistakes and feel uncomfortable and keep trying, keep practicing, keep learning. And part of what those leaders need to do is be able to acknowledge and validate and reinforce the good new things that are coming. So acknowledge when people are scared, Acknowledge there's an uneasiness. Acknowledge what we know and what we don't. Acknowledge the discomfort. Acknowledge the learning curve. I see you. This is not for sissies. Let's go. You're doing great. Reinforce. You went through the system. You processed the order. You got on the new team. You took the training. Good for you. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Reinforcement is paving that highway. People like us do things like this. The first time it was uncomfortable, but you did it. You showed up. Do it again tomorrow. Do it again the next day until this normal becomes your new normal. Acknowledge, validate, reinforce, celebrate, all those things. Okay. Making change stick. Leadership, leadership, and leadership. With that, I'm going to let the leadership expert wrap us up here, Jack.
Well then.
Any comments or questions?
I don't think we have any new comments or questions. The comments just enjoying the analogies and the stories, making people feel seen. Apparently, some of the things that we're talking about here, you're actually experiencing there at work. Go figure. I know.
Shocking.
Go figure. Yeah, it's important. So we appreciate you coming and sharing your comments because it is important for us we have chosen the world of helping you all. And it helps us to help you if you keep us close to the kinds of things that you're truly experiencing every day as you're going through changes. And we certainly have much more. We always have much more. Thank you for joining us for just this hour. But if you'll take us to the next slide, I think we have an opportunity that you might be interested in. If you do need more, want more, important to get more. Some of you know this. I think we have almost all of your students probably on this in this session today, Courtney, always showing up to hear more. And you can spend some time with Courtney. It's delightful. Spend some time with Courtney in our Navigating Change Masterclass, which she will take you down deeper, talk about some tools and techniques and strategies for actually making this manifest, having this come to life for real in the changes that you're experiencing in your organization. So do consider joining into this program and learn a lot more. Spend a lot more time with Courtney. And one of the things I know that Courtney is doing in this program, and I don't know if there's anyone that can share this, put some comments in the Q&A, is she's spending some time talking to you about your specific changes. So we've tried to design this course, as we do with all of our programming. We try to design it so that you can talk to us about what you are experiencing specifically. This stuff there is no easy yes or no, right or wrong. It's messy. It's messy. And so we try to design our program so that we wrestle through that stuff with you. And man, you'll bring forward some problems that are very nuanced, very subtle. And we wrestle through those with you. So this course is designed exactly like that. You can see that we have, for those of us who join us in these sessions, we always have a special for you. So if you want to sign up, we've got a class coming up in May. Let's see, I've got something in the way of the date. I want to say it's May 14th. There it is. May 14th. If you send a note to Courtney or me, but Courtney's better. Send a note to Courtney by April 5th. And if you want to join that class, you can bring someone else along as well at half price. So what better? Get in at half price. So we've got that.
Happy hour. Why do we not call our ads happy hour?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Buy one, get one.
Happy hour.
Get one half off. Okay, and so and as always, we just want to hear from you. So I think we'll wrap you up and leave you with an image of all the kinds of ways that you can contact us. So it's easy to find us just send us Jackie or Courtney at slingshot25.com. We do reply to all of our emails. Feel free to send us what's on your mind, what you need, what you'd like us to be talking about. We'd love to hear from you. And then, of course, you can always find us on our website. More to say. Check it out. We've got articles, videos, Jack Chats out there for any fans of Jack Chat. And our Shotcast, where we talk about all the kinds of things that you're thinking about. All right, I think that's what we've got for you today. And I just want to thank you again for joining us. I hope you come again. We'll have another webinar. We'll get that announced here within the next few weeks, I'm sure. and let you know what's happening next. And please do reach out to us and let us know if there's something in particular that would be helpful if we shared our thoughts on that. All right. Thank you, everybody.